Okay, welcome to the Wednesday afternoon 1:30 meeting of the BOCC. We don't have Public Works coming in today. We didn't have any topics to express, but we do have a bid opening, and we still have the 2:30 meeting going over recording fees. So we'll just turn it over to Kelly for bid openings.
Kelly Dombrowski, Clerk of the Board. We have a bid opening for the armed security guards. We have quite a bit here, so I'll start going through 'em. This bid is from the Allied Universal Security Services.
Universal Security Services.
Looks like their grand total is $575,767.84. $575,767.84. This proposal is from PAL American Security. Their grand total is $506,241. PAL. 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 This is from Phoenix Protective Corp, PPC Solutions. Their estimated cost is $181,701.23. 181. The next one is from Green Leaf Protection. Their total is $511,155.72. This is from Security Services Northwest Incorporated. I'm not seeing a total on that, so they might have, purchasing might have to let us know about that one. This is from Kingdom Security. Kingdom. Yeah, I'm not seeing a total on that one either. This is Portland Patrol Incorporated. Their total amount is $668,000. This is from Northwest Enforcement. I'm not seeing a total amount on this one.
On the ones with no total amount, what things are you seeing?
It's giving a breakdown of the hourly rate per position.
Breakdown by, in other words, they categorize it of the type of service by the, and then they attach an hourly rate to it.
Yeah.
I'd be interested in what those numbers are, but
This is from Rubicon Protection.
again,
Rubicon.
RUBICON?
Yep.
Thank you.
And their total cost would be $508,764. And all of these will be going to the purchasing department to review.
The one from Phoenix was significantly below everybody else's. Is that right?
There has to be a misunderstanding there.
Yes. That's what I was thinking. Somebody didn't understand the assignment or something, because
Well,
that's quite a difference.
That's why I got interested in the hourly rates. That's actually more useful than the bottom line.
Anyway, this goes over to purchasing and they take it from there. Okay.
Hmm.
Quite frankly, I didn't know we had this many security firms.
Yeah. One of my questions was, where are they based?
Well,
We
the one
didn't
that
get an
says Portland Patrol, I'm guessing is out of.
That was the
Portland.
most expensive one,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
Yeah, but is it Portland, Oregon? And we didn't get a response from BlackRock.
I can give you who each of them are, if they're, where they're from.
I've got to crank up my hearing aid.
I can let you know where each of them are from if you'd like that information.
Well, I think they'll go through it, and that's least interesting to me, but we'll probably have some questions when purchasing gets through digesting it.
And bring it back for approval. Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll get another crack at it.
Okay.
I'm just amazed that how many hours so you can you sort of tell us how many hours was in the RFP?
Oh,
Well, if the RFP asks for a bid, supply a bid, they're not responsible.
that would be my assumption too.
Except we want the best. Yeah, I mean, that's a good starting point, but then you got to look into it and say, was it our fault or their fault? Are they playing a game with us or did we just not understand? Yeah, so forth.
Chime in. We have it actually available if you want to
Oh, yeah.
ask a question on that.
Good afternoon. Ashley Clausen,
Ashley.
Purchasing Services. Hi. So I heard the question about the number of hours for the contract. It was estimated, and in the addenda that went out, it was an estimated 14,316 hours for one contract year. And that was for administration, that was for admin, Hall of Justice, 2 guards over there. That is the jail, juvenile, and also a working site supervisor. And those were the hours for the previous year.
Are
Gotcha.
all those hours equal? So we're.
No,
Okay. So some are supervisors, some carry, some don't carry.
they all carry. There are different, so like admin has different hours. The Hall of Justice has some different hours. The Hall of Justice actually has 2 because those are the ones that are there doing the check-in and going through the screening.
Oh, yeah,
And
but
then-
the 14,000 hours or so, that's if I take any hour out of there and I get an hourly number, that's same number applies to all the other hours, is the question.
The 14,000 is all of those positions in all locations combined.
So I would assume the company would assign different rates to.
That's what I'm saying. So,
Yes.
you know, so I assume the majority of these are for the rank and file type.
Yes.
That'd probably be the majority of people you'd have on site, right?
Right.
Yes.
Interesting.
Oh, and does it include automobiles or anything like that?
Yes, this new RFP does have the requirement for 1, if not 2. The working site supervisor is in charge of going back and forth and relieving for lunch breaks. And also this new element this year includes doing the rounds going back and forth to places such as Health and Human Services, the museum.
And you got the 14,000 hours by just our history, right?
Yes, the last 12 months.
Sounds reasonable to me,
Yeah.
although, yeah.
Okay.
So when you look at this, are you going to decide on a bottom line? I assume that what you do want was something that says we want 14,000 hours and then we want to know what the hourly breakdown is.
Yes,
that
we
true?
did.
Yeah.
Yes, we did ask for the hourly rate and also the estimated cost for a 1-year contract.
And the estimated one is based on this number of hours that you talked about.
Yes, it was supposed to have been.
What's the rationale there as opposed to asking for just the hourly rate there? The rationale for telling them number of hours is not so they can do the multiplication, but so that they can decide what the volume of the contract is, right?
Yes. Because some of those hourly rates, they change based on the position and the location. So we don't want to just look at the rates because some could be higher in one place, lower than another. So we just kind of did the yearly contract amount to kind of see if we could even it out.
So if I look at the RFP, I will see the different categories of hours then where we say we want this many hours for here and this many hours for that.
Yes, we didn't give the actual number of hours. We gave the estimated hours from last year for them to base their totals
Right,
off of.
right.
Yes.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how you resolve the huge
Yes.
gap between most of the bidders and the one who currently works with us.
We're glad you're on board, Ashley.
Thank you. This will be a fun one.
Yeah. Thanks for your time, Ashley.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Yeah, we're on till 2.
Was there any unfinished business we should talk about? I didn't get a very.
Can't recall any.
Going back to the Mount St. Helens Institute trip, I found myself a bit confused at times. The phasing was introduced at the one time, and it was done so quickly that I think a successful plan says stage 1 we do this, and then depending on how that works out, we think stage 2 is appropriate and so forth. And it wasn't clear to me. Dennis, you're more intimate with that group. What was the first stage?
I think it was the housing, wasn't it?
So the housing was the first need.
Employee housing or
The combination, the cabins for the kids as well as the employee
As
housing.
well as the employee. It was for both.
And preparation of the campsites.
Was that the first stage?
Yeah, that was the thing. There's some pretty extensive remodeling that they've proposed. Just
Yeah.
because it's a maintenance nightmare with as many huge windows as there are. But
I think
that's later on.
That was like the last stage.
Yeah.
I think they were it sounded like they were, in the order they had it, they were trying to move the operations as they would come on board. So I'll give them credit for that. But I think the first stage was the student housing.
yeah.
That could also be income for weekends and stuff. People could rent that.
That's the heads and beds
And
stuff.
then the
Yeah.
campground with the art.
The campground was 3, right? The third.
Yeah, I don't know that it was.
No, they were
think
they
it was
were
the
looking
first?
at developing. There's some trail developments because they want additional activities for people to do once they get up there. Down the line a little bit.
Yeah, I get really ambivalent about tourism. It's a double-edged sword. You know, that's a pretty nice location, and then somebody's gonna be camping down there with his boom box, and we've invited them all, and it's like,
Well, that's the situation with just about any
oh,
campground, campsite. thing,
agreed,
so,
agreed, but in this case, someone has to cough up a lot of money.
Yeah.
And that brings me to the other concern, which is, how do we, my dad grew up upstate New York in one of those not dude ranches isn't the right word, but one of those summer retreat kind of things. And all of those went out of business at one point in time. And I don't see how this can be made economical. The school is something totally different in my book. And when it's combined, I start to get a little itchy. Anyhow, those are just my
Yeah.
impressions.
I think, yeah,
Well, I think
I
filling
think they were
in,
trying to look at ways to utilize whatever they did
right,
as best, and that's probably where some of the rental stuff comes in.
one of the thoughts that occurred to me, based on our Board of Health meetings, was one of the suggestions that a portion of the state health monies could go towards outdoor recreation. And developing trails might be an appropriate use if that makes sense, because they want to do more trails out there.
Well, I had some of those
You know,
thoughts
it's
too,
like,
after
well-
listening to what some other counties
Mhm,
had done with it.
mhm.
So if you did have something that made sense, it sounds like those funds, if the other counties are doing what they're supposed to do, that there is a broader range than what we see on some stuff.
One of the other things that was a little disconcerting, not, I like the idea of a situation where the kids actually partake in the maintenance of. So when they said they needed people to clean the bathrooms, what's the matter with the kids? Are their arms broken? You know, that kind of thing. Because that's part of education, you know, clean up after yourself.
I would imagine that the cabins are gonna have to be kept clean, and in those settings that I've been involved in, absolutely.
Yeah, actually, you
So-
told me about some camps that you
Mhm.
have when you were a youngster. That was last week.
Yeah,
What happened to those camps? Are they still going?
the ones that I attended are submerged, buried in the mud from the eruption. There's no trace of them left. I mean, the wave came down that mountainside and, filled in the lake, and the water went up and over and destroyed everything that was possible. And the sediment, and it went up and over the hill behind the camps. And
So in those days, prior to the eruption, you would go every summer?
so on the north shore of Spirit Lake, there were 4 youth camps. The farthest north at the head of the lake was the Portland YMCA camp. So they would trek people up from Portland for
Yeah.
week-long sessions. And then there was the Longview had a smaller camp. They could handle 60 or 70 kids a week. So they ran them through. Adjacent to the Y camp on the west side was the Portland area Boy Scout camp. And then beyond the Boy Scout camp was the Girl Scout camp. So all of them were roadless access. You had to boat all your supplies across. and the kids as well.
That's kind of fun in
Yeah,
itself.
it was pretty isolated. And one of the interesting things is that because there were all these camps, there was a private cabin almost next door to the Longview Y camp that was owned by the Platt family out of Portland, Platt Electric. And they allowed doctors to use that cabin as a residence during the summer. So there was access to medical care for all the campers. So that was pretty cool. And
Did you know anything or remember anything about the economics of it? Like, did you pay for yourself?
so for the kids, if we had the option, of course, if your parents wanted to pay for it, they could, but we had the option of selling toffee covered peanuts in cans that came in, and I don't remember the price.
Did you do a good
I
job?
would sell a little bit, I would sell some things, your neighbors and your parents and so you'd contribute a little bit towards it. But I do remember later on when, in the late 70s, the price was getting pretty high. Not as high as the outdoor camp, but $140 a night. I think said they were
Wait,
allocated.
what's that number you just gave?
$140. They mentioned it
Oh,
yesterday.
yeah, right.
It wasn't that expensive at all, but there was always a real challenge to make ends meet. And there was always the suggestion that one of the best ways that they cut back on costs was cheaper food. Depends on,
what?
cheaper food.
Oh, yeah.
Cut costs on the food, but that's usually more if you like the food that they prepared or not.
Right.
What things did you get experts coming in to talk about flora and fauna or anything like that? It was just
No, it was
just for fun camp.
So there were adult program managers, but they were from the local area,
Yeah.
and cabin counselors. So usually high school kids that oversaw the dozen kids in each cabin. And usually somebody's trained with water safety. So they were
Mhm.
in charge of the waterfront, the boating and the sailing and the swimming. And there was a maintenance crew. Early on, when I was a little kid, they burned the garbage. Things changed.
Yeah, things change these days, yeah.
And they had to be very careful because if they didn't take care of the garbage appropriately, the bears would come. And, so that was a safety consideration.
Take care of it.
So eventually they had to haul it across and haul it down to a dump. I guess in Longview. We had the long distance swims, a quarter of a mile from the Girl Scout camp to Longview Y. On the east side,
What was the temperature when you did these swims? The temperature of the water?
cold, very cold.
Like 65 or colder?
It was pretty cold.
They were motivated though. They
There
were
was-
headed
there
over
was-
to the
there was-
girls' camp.
You always had a boat, so you never swam by yourself. You always had a boat there. And you had to swim laps in the outdoor swimming area so that you could endure the length of time in the cold. But it was chilly. And usually you did it early in the morning and there was no socializing. It was the Girl Scout camp, but it was a point and we swam across the water. On the east side was a private resort at a waterfall called Harmony Falls. And we swam from there, and that was about a half a mile swim. And then the boat launch, which is on the south shore, that was a mile swim. And that was kind of the granddaddy achievement if you swam a mile in that frozen, icy water. Nobody died as far as I remember. No rumors about that happening.
They just hid the body.
Yeah.
So Rick, you grew up around here roughly, right? Did you have same camp
So,
experiences?
You know, I didn't do many of them. What I did was revolved around sports. Like I went up to Woodby Island and for Lenny Wilkins basketball camp, spent a week and different things like that, you know, in barracks.
I
And
remember
do
Lenny
that.
Wilkins.
Yeah.
So with,
That was expensive though, right? I mean, that,
Well,
coughed
yeah,
up a few
I
bucks
know,
for
I
that.
know my parents paid for it and I can't tell you what it was, but it didn't come free type thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
part of the routine for the Longview Y camp was that usually it went from Saturday to Saturday. And Thursday night, we hiked to a different location. So we had one overnight, a real camping experience. And-
oh,
And,
where you pitched a tent or you went into a yurt or
yes.
something?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it was tent on the ground.
Yeah, yeah.
And I did some 4-H stuff. I went on 2 different times, spent a week up in the Gifford Pinchot on horses. We had horses. And so there was, you'd camp out for the week and ride the trails and do all that kind of stuff.
See, the way I'm hearing this, I would expect that back in that era, lots of kids participated.
I think it is a different thing now.
And
They
that's-
have, I don't have my phone on me, but they do a lot of that stuff. And
Well, the interesting thing is with the camp, and of course I was, grade school kid, and the cabins didn't have showers and bathrooms. There was one central location for that stuff. And showers, I said, we can go swimming. That takes care of that. So I think the shower, there were showers there. They were basically it was for staff, but so it's a little bit more elaborate up there. But the other thing is, each cabin having showers, that's got to be expensive.
yeah, if you're plumbing water out there,
Yeah.
doing all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they have we learned that the place was built for 3,000 visitors a day. So their infrastructure
Capacity.
for plumbing is greater than what even these plans are for. So huge capacity.
Yeah.
On a different vein, although let me complete that. So the picture I have is that we've gone away from your experiences on average, and that has been to the detriment of our society is my kind of real soft conclusion.
Well, I know the youth, the scouting movement still operates camps all over the place. The YMCA they still have these camps, but it's not very localized here because they gave up the camp at the Longview Y.
When you were of Boy Scout age, I'm thinking back to I craved being a member of the Boy Scout, but we moved too much. I remember seeing Boy Scouts all over the place. And here I have not seen a Brownie or a Boy Scout or a Cub Scout, Girl Scout.
The
Do they-
numbers are much less. You're
Much
right.
less,
Yeah.
yeah.
And, of course, there's been a lot of unsavory experiences that
Yeah.
have come to light too. It's been very unfortunate, but the numbers are low, but no, there's still Scout troops and Cub troops, the Girl Scouts.
We even had an Eagle
I
Scout
guess there's-
speak here.
Yeah.
There's been a significant change. The Boy Scouts have been allowing women and girls to participate for years
Yeah.
now. And the Girl Scouts are mad because technically the Boy Scout organization is now Scouting of America. And the Girl Scouts have maintained a separation, and they don't like the idea that the old Boy Scouts have taken over the Scouting name as a trademark.
KD is chomping at the bit to say something. You're not?
Me?
No,
Oh, Kelly?
Kelly.
So.
You grew up around here, right?
Yes, I did grow up around here. It just is bringing me back. I was a Girl Scout leader for 6 years and watching the Girl Scouts are a great program, and we went on a lot of those trips that you guys are talking about, and there isn't a lot of places to go. I do,
They still have their Camp Evergreen out on Mill Creek.
yep, we spent a whole week out there. It was a little terrifying, but it's a cougar that came on the
Campfire Girls
property.
used- Campfire Girls used to have a camp out on Silver Lake.
He seems to know a lot about this.
Yeah.
The Girl Scouts, that is.
Mhm.
I do. I grew up with 3 sisters and I have 3 daughters, so yeah.
You were the odd
Those are the
man out.
realities.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure it's just limited to the kids' programs anymore. I mean, you don't see country clubs packed like they used to. You don't see service clubs packed like they used to. It's just.
Except around here, the Lions is pretty big and the
It's
Rotary.
not like it used to be.
Not like it
and-
used to be. Yeah,
And the
all
country
clubs are-
club up there, it used to be a long waiting list to get into that thing, and it's not, people just do different things.
Do you
these
golf
days.
there?
I have. When I was with US Bank, I actually had a membership there, and then they had value because if somebody wanted in and you wanted to sell the membership, you could get, well,
Not anymore.
So-
not anymore.
So
Right.
what is it that changed? Because our predilections are pretty much the same. Those camps were fun and joining the golf club is good
Yeah,
too.
I don't know that I have a concrete answer for you. People have different interests or different,
I have a feeling
I think-
technology killed us.
that probably
So-
was,
so the
had
one-
something to do with it.
The one big change, I think, is the family structure has changed. There's so many single head of household families, and there's only so much time you can devote to all those different activities.
Yeah.
I-
When you got two parents working, who's gonna run them all to the,
you know,
who's gonna get involved with the Girl Scouts, or who's gonna get involved with the Boy Scouts, or who's gonna get involved with this or that?
I remember one particularly tough year in high school when all 3 of our girls were at high school, and they were all in different after-school activities. 3. We can handle 2, 'cause one can go to each
Right,
one, but
right.
that 3rd one.
But
That was
back
tough.
in that era, I don't recall seeing all the magnitude of kids involved in organized sports. And it seems like,
So I know in Longview, it has dramatically changed. When I was a kid growing up, there was a baseball park in the Highlands. In fact, it was called Highland Park. And they've changed the name to Archie Anderson Park. And it
Yeah.
was a couple of baseball fields. And they ended up shutting down the baseball fields for a while. And they've kind of done Sandlot, a substitute for that. But that has changed. So I always have to remind myself, as a baby boomer, I grew up when there were lots of kids, right? So that has changed and.
Yeah.
uh,
We'd find a field and split up and play football or play whatever.
that's,
you know?
yeah, do we see that anymore?
I don't see it very often
Yeah.
anymore. I'm not looking for it, so
Yeah.
I can't say it's not out there, but I know all the neighborhood kids, we get together and we go, let's go play some football, and you go out to the field, or let's go hit some balls or whatever.
Let me say it in a kind of pejorative way, and I don't mean too much by this, but I think of soccer and baseball in Latin America, and people play with sometimes barefoot, they just don't have the gear. Here you go in and everybody is super decked out and all of that, and yet I don't know that we're any better off for that. It seems a bit artificial sometimes.
It probably seemed, it's probably seemed to my parents that it was expensive to do with that, but I think these days, when I hear some of the costs when we had bats, it was the coach brought a bag of bats.
Right.
Now everybody has their own bat, and they have
Bats aren't cheap.
I think it's not cheap.
Yeah, it's rather,
Yeah, so it's a pretty big commitment when somebody does that. And then sports, if you want to concentrate on baseball, you can play it all year round, or basketball in different leagues, and
Yeah.
select teams and all this other stuff. It's,
So there's got to be a dissertation in here for explaining that. So changing the gears just a little bit, did you know John Zingale?
No,
He's
I had not met him until yesterday,
so you remember him from
from
yesterday?
yesterday, yes.
Yeah, he was the school teacher. He's actually running for
18th legislative
18th
district.
legislative
House.
district,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I had a chat with him about teaching and, you know, comparing activities that I'd done and if he'd been involved, and he ended up giving me a card. He said, oh, by the way. Oh,
we don't have any of the 18th anymore. We used to,
that's right.
but it's gone now.
Is the 18th totally gone? There is no 18th?
Well, there
I don't
is, but
think,
it's all Clark County.
yeah, I don't think we have any 18th in Cowlitz County
No, not at
anymore.
all.
Oh, no, yeah, no, but the number exists.
Oh, yeah.
Um, I don't
They
know if you
retired
picked
it.
up the fact that Paul Harris was there.
Yeah,
He's been a long time state representative, and he's involved this year in running for the Senate from the 17th district. And he said they've really come after him. And but he's on the board of directors for the Institute.
oh,
So at the board of director, it's pretty much a Clark County
Yeah.
organization that the members, but then they also have a lot more money.
But, and I think technically, isn't the bridge that washed out, isn't that in the 17th? I think that's his.
I like where you're going.
I think it's really close. I have to check those lines.
The worst thing if it
I
were
think the
half,
washout is in your district.
No, I don't think so.
Which is the 20th district, so legislative district. Yeah.
Oh, we're gonna make it to 2:30 after all, all right, yeah.
well,
Well.
you want to take a
Wait
break?
a minute, do you need to take a break? Do you
We
need
can
to?
take
No, I'm fine, but I don't want to exhaust my colleagues with my inane questions.
We can take a break and you can probably get some
They're
of
not
this
innate. Those are
squared
good-
away.
Those are good to know.
Okay. We'll be back at 2:30.
You know what's on my mind?
I wish you could see it. But I have an hour driving up there comparing. It's so much better. Give him expectations. Up to him. The hard thing is when he doesn't have it. He goes into an art, does something and makes it up. So, I can. This morning, then my nephew came. Still somebody's up there, so. Crack me up. Yeah, he's 17. He's like, I'll just sit out here.
Even though it's
Cold, yeah, he was fine with it. Yeah, I just have to get all the. I looked at my license. My, oldest son. And it's my oldest son's first. That really gets people. That's what Zach's like. I'm not my name. And he's like, and I'm racing and yeah. Did I meet him? I know it's not the one that's here.
Never forget something.
No, you don't. That's a good one. We're gonna go with that.
Makes sense, doesn't it?
Yes. Presentation.
Big part.
That's interesting. Presentation. Would you like to? No.
Not bad interest. Yeah.
I don't know why. Yeah. rabies. Jeff. We'll see. So that works. Precedence.
Well, yeah, but that was superseded by this. And then it turns out that not only was it superseded, but there's another thing, I forget what it's called. So, not only takes long time, but then from that ours and other special notes or something. That's why whenever I get, I went home through like all of in bullet points. I mean, explanation. I just need bullet points of what actually applies.
Well, I've seen some of this. Delegate authority to another entity.
Yeah.
And usually issues like and Riverside.
There is no such thing.
And Gina. Texas.
This isn't. I guess it's a big deal, but it's not a big deal because everybody knew it was coming, but I lost one of my sister-in-laws yesterday. But what you need to know is the history on her. She was actually my age. Barbie was Ginger has fought drugs for. She had a job with the state where she would inspect daycares. She got fired because she did in the cabinets and steal medications that she was high on. Yeah. She twice almost lost her life because she infected herself with infections. got an infection in her leg so bad she lost her leg. And she still wouldn't give up the drugs. Meth was her main one. And she got Social Security disability because she couldn't work. And so she's a drug addict. So she spent money from the government. Finally, got up with her. She kept bringing her youngest son, he'd get clean, go to a different place and get himself clean. And she'd bring him back into the house, and it's like she couldn't stand not having.
I never understood why people want to shove a beer under the road. Oh, come on, just one beer.
She was never held accountable for stealing. She was actually rewarded for being disabled when she was a drug addict. Yeah, it's sickening the way the system can just.
Yeah, and I think that the unintended consequences of that.
When she was sober, she was sober. One of my best stories about her when I was young, I was working Cowlitz. She came over to the house and she was had Marty help her put the stuff that was going to lighten her hair, just lighten it. Yeah. And they had some left over, so they talked me in. She talked me into putting some in. It turned her hair red. She was so thick, she was on the phone. And I go into work and I go, I hope nobody notices. The first thing the boss says, "What'd you do to your hair?" I threw her under the bus just like that. Yeah, this was like the early 80s. Yeah, I threw her under the bus real quick. I said, "Don't ever let your sister-in-law mess with you."
How close are we? Oh, we're over.
Our clocks.
Okay. It still comes from our funds, so.
Okay. We're back for our 2:30 meeting. I see we have our group here. So Kathy, you leading this thing?
Yes, Kathy
Okay.
Funk Baxter, Finance Director, and I'm going to lead the discussion on recording fees and affordable housing. And the data was prepared back in July for this presentation, so just full disclosure. And so we have a presentation to pull up, and y'all have a handout, and we have some extra handouts at the table here. Okay, thank you. So next slide we have, and this is a great picture of a dollar bill and how it's to depict how the $303.50 for recording fees gets split up, and basically into three categories: into archives and preservation. And then some very specific areas for that. Affordable housing is the majority of where the $303.50, sorry, goes. And then administration and recording is the third category. So the next slide tells you, for our purposes, and I think this one is good because it shows how much of that goes to the state and how much is retained here at the county. And so on the preservation fees, you can see that there is $1 that's retained here at the county that goes to the general auditor revenue fund, and that's for commissioner preservation. And I believe that's the amount that we use to help pay for a portion of Laserfish where the documents are, to help pay for that system. And then the rest goes to the state. And then for affordable housing, of that section, a majority of that goes to the state. But then there are sections that go specifically to our low-income housing fund. And the $5.49 is basically for to cover administration cost. And then the $41.18 is for specific program use. And then there's another $8.24 that goes to low income or affordable housing specifically. But a lot of it goes to the state. And then administration and recording, this is where $4.83 goes to our auditors, operation and maintenance. And then $5 goes to the general fund. So out of the total $303.50, you can see the state retains $237.76 of those funds.
These are all, I just would point out, these are all funds generated within our county,
Yes, within Cowlitz County.
and the state keeps the majority of that.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, for specific programs. And those are pretty well listed there. The state home security fund, covenant home ownership fund, state landlord mitigation, state affordable housing fund, growth management planning, things like that. So.
It seems to me that the low-income housing versus affordable housing is an unnecessary distinction, but there because of the politics, I guess. I mean, this whole thing is politics, but what is the difference between affordable housing and low-income housing? No, I think I know what it is in principle, but administratively.
Yeah, we have some slides that go into that into detail and talks
Okay.
about, and so in fact, the next slide talks about of the $303.50, $183 of that is considered a document recording surcharge. And then it goes into how that's split up, and this is the amounts that most of that's going to the state, but the 5491, which basically is 30% of the total funds, is coming to the county, and then of course the $1.83 is coming to the auditor's office. In more detail, it talks about, the next slide says of the 5491, the majority of that, $41.18, is being allocated per RCW to a low income housing fund. And that's where that portion, 75% of the county portion, will be retained and used by the county to accomplish the purposes of its local homeless housing plan. So that accounts for the 75% of that 5491 is the 4118. And
How do I interpret the dollars under each year? That's
So
what came in that year.
that's
not-
what came in that year. And so 2020, you see $1 million, a little over $1 million. 2021 was $1.1 million. And then 22 revenue was 728,000. And 22 revenue. And then 23 revenue was only 516,000 in revenue. And then as of preparing these documents, we had collected 314,000 basically for 2024 at the time, mid-year.
Yeah. But I'd be correct in assuming that the state just sends the money to the county, even though some of it's generated in the cities, and like we saw with Longview, they can request and have their their own, but it's not broken down by the state. It's just, the state just assumes it goes to the counties.
Of this portion, it goes to the county. There is a portion that we share of the document
Okay, so
recording
that's
fees.
shown in a different
That's a
line.
different.
Okay,
mhm,
all right.
mhm.
But I think your question still really applies. This is for a doc recording fee regardless of whether it's in town or, right? And then the portion, the allocation of it, the municipalities have some additional control where they can say they want this portion for that currently goes all to the county, like the city of Longview wanted their portion separate.
No, this portion is for the county and for the county's allocation as commissioners that you make those decisions. There's another portion that can be shared with the county, with the cities.
And
Correct?
yeah,
you-
we,
so-
we,
If I say something wrong, Deborah's here to help me. Correct me.
yeah, and I didn't, there was the portion that the city of Longview at one point was receiving, and it was a portion of one of these,
Right.
yeah, then
Yes.
we would have to do a calculation on the amount of excise that came through and did some,
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is the state isn't going to do the calculation. You're just going to send it to us, and
well, we
if the
collect,
city wants to do something, then we do the calculation.
yeah, and the state isn't sending us anything. We're collecting this money here.
Oh, it's
And
what
then
we
we-
retain?
Yeah, what we retain, and then we
Right.
send it to the state, what we collect for them, we send it to them once a month.
Okay.
And then, yes, so we do that, we would do the calculations ourselves.
That's a reasonable expectation, though.
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
So,
Which is a little bit different than the way they collect sales tax.
yeah,
Right.
it's
Since
very
the state
much
collects the
different.
Sales tax, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, usually they collect it and then tell us what we're going to get.
Right, right. This one's collected locally.
Okay.
But we collect the state's property taxes, the real estate excise tax, and we send that off to the
You,
states.
you know, when they collect and they send back to us, they charge a fee for doing that? Do you charge them a fee, Deborah?
There, we, for real, for not for property taxes, but for real estate excise tax, there's a small percent that
Small.
we can keep for the administration fee.
And even on this, there's a small percent that's earmarked for administration.
Yeah.
So, but of the 5491, 4118 is designated for low income housing fund per the regulations, RCW 36.22.250. And then of the 5491, again, 15%, that's the next slide. 15% will be retained and used by the county for eligible housing activities. And that's in the county and cities. So that amounts to $8.24 per recording. So those are also accounted for in the Affordable Housing Fund. And of those funds, this is where we have interlocal agreements with all 5 cities within Cowlitz County. Those were created back in 2004.
It's one agreement
Mhm.
between the county and all the
5
cities.
Mhm. And so,
So a question on that, that one agreement then was overridden by the Longview agreement?
No, that was different.
That's
That was a different percentage. This is just the $8.24
Okay.
that we're talking about.
yep. So,
You
so
get that? You have to keep track of the dollars.
Yeah, yeah.
It's all confusing.
that's why we showed that first slide, which the auditor's office did. And it's a great slide to show how things are cut up on the dollar.
This one's, it just kind of sounds like, hey, county, do the investment for us. Keep it in the investments accounts.
This $8, this one,
Mhm.
so on this $8.24, we collect it for the year. And we do keep it invested throughout the
Mhm.
year. And then once a year, we do all the calculations to figure out how much goes to each of the cities and how much the county keeps.
Yeah.
Right,
Sounds
based
to me
upon
like
that
it was just
agreement.
More of, let's have the county invest it and then they can give it to us at the end of the year type thing, whatever.
But this one, when we do the spreadsheet for the calculations, we're taking into consideration the assessed value of each of the cities and county and the population. There's a bunch of numbers that go into it that
Oh, so that's an aggregate computation as opposed to a per event summing it up.
yes.
Yeah, so like she said, the distribution is 1/2 of the weight is given based upon assessed property value, and the other half is based upon the jurisdiction share of population.
Okay. So probably sounds like I'm getting in the weeds, but say you take in $1 million in this fund, it's sitting there. And over the year, it's up to 110 million now. So is the distribution on 110? Do they get to participate in the earnings on whatever it?
Yes,
Yeah. Okay.
it's the total in the fund at the time of distribution.
But the interest you make,
Correct.
you keep separately.
No,
Okay.
the interest stays within that fund. This is its own separate fund where all the funds stay there until we distribute them once a year.
The distribution includes the principal and interest, so to speak.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
This
Well,
is
those
such-
dollars for the cities kind of demonstrates the ridiculousness of the whole formula, because you're not going to be able to make much of a difference for $3,000 or $6,000. So it makes sense that they pool it.
Yeah.
And then make sure that the homeless get driven to the big cities.
Yeah, but the thing that's odd is these dollars came from Longview, but they get thrown in the pool. It's not clear that Longview gets back at least the dollars that it threw in.
Oh, yeah, I see what you, because you're using a different formula to distribute them out than
Then you
what
took it
was-
in.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, in this particular one where there are minimums that
Mhm.
are determined, yeah, the minimums
Yeah.
of the smaller cities, which.
Yeah,
but-
there are
but-
three.
But they pull it, but they send it back to us and they let us keep it anyway, right?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, the affordable housing funds that they get with those minimums that are guaranteed, the 6,000 or the 3,000. They don't run those programs by themselves. They keep it pooled with the county.
I think they get these
Yeah,
funds.
they get these funds. They're
do
dispersed
get these
directly to
funds.
them.
Yeah,
Mhm.
this is separate from that city of Longview scenario we were talking about.
Okay.
This is an interlocal agreement between all of the cities and the counties to get this portion of the recording fee.
So they've been getting it all along.
Yes, this has been going on since 2004. Is that when the
Yeah.
the
And we-
interlocal agreement was done?
Yeah, and you
So,
can,
and with those calculations in that agreement, it does, there's the smaller cities, there's a minimum that we give them. If it falls below that, they still get that portion.
it might be easier to see on the next slide, the actual distributions for the last few years. And we're not talking about a lot of money, but you can see that the distributions have run in total anywhere from 151,000 down to 100,000, which was this past year. And those
But Rick, with
cities
the
that have the
interest rates going-
minimums,
With the interest rates going down, we'll see a jump in that figure next year, right?
Yeah.
I mean, quite literally. I mean, it is interest because
you
it's
could,
generated by the
because
purchases of
It
homes.
could start spurring demand, which would move ahead. It's
Mhm.
possible, yeah.
Mhm.
Usually it has some kind of lag effect, but
yeah, so those cities that have those minimums, like for example, Castle Rock and Kalama and Woodland, you can see the years that that they got the minimums. and those years that they got a little bit more based upon the distribution formulas.
So the $55,000 that Cowlitz County got this year in February. Kathy, what do we do with that portion? Did that get lumped into another fund? How did we spend that?
That,
Yeah, it stays in affordable housing.
it gets moved out. Gina, do you know where that goes? I don't have the, does that get moved into the 18401 fund?
Okay, and it is confusing because it's been historically the revenues,
Who are you?
I'm sorry, Gina James, Health and Human Services.
Oh, thank you.
The revenues historically have been split into 3 different categories. This particular one that we share with the cities is specific. It's affordable housing revenue, and it's has to be used for certain uses that are listed in the RCW. Unlike the other 2 revenue streams that are larger and the statute says to be used for activities on your local plan. This one is connected to specific activities, and we historically use it to support the emergency support shelter contract that we have, because emergency shelter is one of the uses in the statute. So that's how we've historically used it.
I think the comment I made still actually applies. The money comes in, but doesn't go out in the same way it came in, same proportions.
Yeah.
But we're talking about,
You're right, but you're not talking big stuff.
but the thing that comes to my mind is someone in the legislature had to come up with this formulation, and it's beyond me if they had any sense as to what they were really doing. It's complexity for no purpose.
Oh, I doubt the legislators did this.
Oh, this was
This legislature said, here's what we want to do. You figure out how to do
the
it.
agency.
And they come up with the details like this.
I sit corrected.
I mean, I'm
No,
pretty
no,
sure
I agree with you. Yeah.
they wouldn't get it passed. People would be making amendments to help their own little communities.
Oh, you're right.
And then of the 5491, we counted for 75%, 15%, and now there's 10% left, and that is equal to $5.49. And that is managed by Health and Human Services. Of course, that's to help offset administrative cost related to the county's homeless housing plan. So this slide also shows how much revenue has come in for the last few years based upon that $5.49. And so as you can see, it's 180,000, 198,000, 131, 82,000, and then as of 2024, as of July 15th, we've received already 36,000. So we're pretty much on track with that assumption that we'll probably receive about 75,000, 80,000 of income like we did in 2023.
So what kind of recordings are we talking about here? Like a marriage certificate?
No.
Real estate.
Only real estate?
No, Carolyn's on there online. There's a few different recordings that have different fees, and I don't know what those all are, but deeds of, I'm not sure about deeds of trust, like warranty deeds, real estate contracts, those type quick claim deeds. And Carolyn's on there. She can answer the rest of
A
that.
quick claim deed would cost me $303.50,
Yes.
Yes, it does.
even if I knew the auditor?
It might cost you extra if you know the auditor.
So, the reason I'm asking that is because it's pretty significant changes in the dollars coming in per year. And typically you want to glean as much information as you can out of the data. There's a message there, but I don't know how to read that yet because I don't know who's recording how much of what kind of things. But based on your answer, almost all of this recording is for well, I should ask the auditor. The bulk of these recordings are for what kind?
Real estate. But there's a few that are exempt and a few that have different fee structures set up in the law, but not very many. So like you pointed out, marriage, that's exempt. The fees included with your marriage application to have that recorded. But I always use an example when people talk about how much this recording fee has increased. I use the example of my dad, who lives in a very small neighborhood with their own covenants, homeowners program out there. They pay into a very small road fund. And when you have property owners that don't pay into that fund, the typical practice would be to go down to the auditor's office and file a lien on the property to collect for their required fees into the road fund. Well, now these fees have risen to such a large amount that the fees are more than their entire year's worth of road fees, road maintenance fees. So the homeowners association out there doesn't want to pay the recording fee, which they would have to renew every year. So these property owners are just kind of getting off the hook of these road maintenance fees because the recording fee to file a lien has increased to such an amount.
And they'd have to record annually?
Yeah, because there's something in the law that says it's actually only valid for a year. So it would need to be renewed each year.
Wait, that specific HOA lien or any lien?
Something, I'm not exactly sure if it's any lien. It could be related to HOA liens. I just know that it was only valid for a year. So they would have to renew it each year.
I'm glad things are this complicated. Otherwise, we wouldn't have anything to do.
I know when you deal with the customer at the counter, another example, I have an old coworker that I worked with. She's retired now. She's selling her home and she needed to do a quick claim deed, like you said, to remove her adult son from the home to get it sold. And the quick claim deed, not only did she have to pay for an attorney because we don't make anything easy, she had to pay for an attorney to draft the quick claim deed because it is that complicated. She attempted to save money and do it herself the first time and got it wrong, paid $303.50 to record the wrong quick claim deed, and then had to go back. It was rejected by the title company, had to go back, pay an attorney to draft it, and now once again pay the $303.50 to record because you can't unrecord. I mean, I could tell you stories all day. It's really a tragedy.
I don't think I could handle it.
And I think that you're right. You made comments about the legislature. Recording fees really hit their radar back in 2017. This hasn't been something that has been crazy like this for a very long time. This is fairly recent. and the fees just skyrocketed in a short amount of years. And what you're seeing is legislative additions, additional fees. And so it's building on an already complex structure, and it's a mess.
Okay.
Okay. Then the next slide, basically, we wanted to show you, and this is courtesy of our Health and Human Services Department. They've put together the information about these document recording fees and how the funds have been used this past year. And so this kind of goes over some of the questions that you had. It's on, collects these document recording fees on real estate transactions, and the portion that is set aside for housing and homeless services. There's also a Cowlitz County Homeless Housing Task Force that provides input to the county commissioners for the ongoing development of a 5-year plan to address homelessness in our county, and that's required by an RCW as well. And the funding will be utilized for those activities outlined in the 5-year plan. So, how does the next one was who decides how to spend it, and that's put before the commissioners and makes the funding decisions to administer this funding. So, and then some examples of the next slide is examples of things that have been funded. And so I don't know, Gina, if you wanted to provide any information, but
sure, yeah, and these are what we have contracts for 2024. The first slide is what our, I don't use the word ongoing, but have been continuous programs. So our coordinated entry, emergency support shelter, shelter operations, and then housing opportunities for the Phoenix House. And just a caveat on the allocated amounts that you see there. We've talked about this before. So that's the amount that's in contract, but we're also, as we've talked about, been looking at, and we have started doing some billing towards our state contract versus document recording fees. So at the end of the year, when we true this up, the allocated amount may not be exactly what comes out of the document recording fees itself, but it's what's in their contract.
So Gene, I think you said something that's easy to overlook. We've talked about how much the state keeps or gets from this fund, but they turn around and send it back to the counties upon application.
Some of it, yes.
Some of it, yeah, right.
Yeah,
right.
They do. And that's the grant that we are utilizing to support some of these that it can be.
And that's the system that the city of Longview has utilized to fund the Hope Village operations.
I believe they had received a state grant. Yes. I'm not sure which one. It's different than the one that we have.
But probably comes from the department, the Department of Commerce that gives us.
It's Department of Commerce. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So on this list, you don't list campus towers or the Sunrise Village.
Next
Sunrise, I
slide.
think.
yeah, there's
Nothing
more
in
than,
it,
Yeah,
yeah,
because
there's more than one
those have
slide.
already been spent, so they're not.
Yeah. And
Those
they're
contracts
on.
are already done.
There we go. So we did list Lower Columbia CAP,
And that's
Community
Catlin
House.
in Maine.
That's Catlin and Maine. Family Promise is listed there. You're right. So Habitat's not listed here, as well as housing opportunities for their West Longview project.
Yeah, that's right. We did, well, we did Habitat after the 7/18.
Right.
Yeah.
date.
Right.
Yeah.
How much did we do for the Habitat? What did we designate for
About
that?
6
was-
something.
Yeah, 6 something, 650, something like that. we're also looking at a couple fund sources there as well. So,
Yeah, I think, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And so you see the projects that were funded in 2024, and some of them were fairly large, but that's because there had been accumulated also a fund balance in there. So for example, the 2 million was predominantly from fund balance that was for Community House on Broadway. So this is a combination of some reoccurring, but a large portion of them not reoccurring items.
How much are we collecting annually now out of the fund from which we paid like the 2 million?
That would be,
That was around 2 million at one time.
yeah, I think that would be out of the fund 18401, which is managed by Health and Human Services. That's low income housing fund. That's where that came out of, if I remember correctly.
So
document recording fees.
Yeah, it's document recording fees.
last year we collected 516,
Yep.
and through mid-July, about 314, so we're probably on track for close to 600
Yeah,
this year.
close to 600 for this year.
Which the high year was 2021, 1.1, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And that's our presentation. If there's any questions. These document recording fees also are part of our financial presentation once a month to you, like we do sales tax to talk about what the trend is. And, you know, like I said, for this year, it looks like on trend, when we look at through August, we're looking at pretty flat, but it looks like we're going to come in at about the same as 2023.
I
Maybe.
appreciate these. I wish the public would take more interest and do some of this. You might send a copy of this over to the moderators of those debates because they get a lot of this wrong.
You know, I would suggest that we consider this presentation or a version of this presentation for our health board. So remember when we interviewed, addressing homelessness and affordable housing was frequently mentioned. And it's like, okay, here's what we're doing. And I think people need to understand that we're doing a considerable amount
I
of
think that's a good idea.
good work.
Yeah, actually, I agree, but I would vary it a little bit. A problem I see is when we conflate a lot of things. So this isn't specifically to first order a Board of Health issue, but it does belong in the view of the public. So I wouldn't necessarily throw it on the arsenic page, if you will.
Yeah, so all of our presentations that we've been doing, we're looking at several of our revenue sources and doing presentations to support how we're utilizing and how it's coming in. Those are all on our finance committee's shared drive, and they're available to be issued out, whoever would request them. Next time, our finance committee, we're looking at timber related revenues to go over that and have a presentation on that in the future. So
They're very helpful. I hang on to them because I'm sure you guys do too. You get questions once in a while and I say, well, yeah, I can tell you right here. Yeah.
I would add one more point that, as you saw, looking at the history of this fund, it is the revenue is up and down. It's not reliable. And we have seen a 50% decrease in revenue. And in 2024, that resulted in a big budget proviso for counties from the legislature. I don't know if we will see that again in 2025, but definitely something to look at, because now counties and cities are relying on this funding that's tied up with their affordable housing. And with it decreasing by 50%, they were failing. So I'm guessing you're going to see another budget proviso in 2025.
I just say your clock drives me crazy.
I was gonna say, can't you get that fixed?
I'll work on that.
So Gina, I know that there is a tiny little bit of sales tax that we also qualify for to address homelessness and affordable housing. It's not document recording fee, but, and it doesn't generate that much.
That's the 1406.
Oh, you remember the number even. Oof.
Yep, the bill
Just in
number.
time.
Yep, the bill number will stay with it forever. Yeah, we are able to reclaim a portion of the state sales tax to use for affordable housing activities. We've used a portion of that with campus towers, and that's one of the sources we're looking at too with Habitat. Yeah, so it's not a whole lot, and it caps off at a certain point in the year. So it, yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions?
We're doing a homeless housing task force meeting tomorrow.
Yes.
Did you want to bring some copies of this?
I certainly can. Yeah, it would be interesting. I did last time, I think, when we talked about the recording fees. Yeah, I certainly can. It might be a little, well, I don't know, the bars codes, I don't know.
I think the last couple of pages that summarize the projects that we've done, I think that's the one that.
I think, yeah, and the whole thing, I think it's easy to underestimate the effort it takes to do anything. Like
Yeah.
I use a ridiculous example, like I can go to my shop and I can build a bowl. That's different than building 10 bowls, different than building 1,000 bowls or 10,000. Well, here we're managing funds, and they're the complexities that are not appreciated. And the more the public knows, the better off we'll be.
Yeah.
And I think the other aspect is part of what you do is try to figure out how many state dollars we can get to spread our local fees farther. The more we can get from the state to do these programs frees up the local dollars to make it available. Because, a year ago we had, Habitat wasn't even on our radar. And yet we came up with a bunch of money because there's some flexibility in some other programs.
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe not $600,000 worth, but that's the idea that I think is just, it's good. Part of our job is to make sure the funds are used the right way. So.
I remember a meeting where Karnofsky was talking about, for every dollar we invest in the state by paying something or other, we get back $1.60 or something like that. And I think what he's saying is that the state supports us beyond what we pay into the state. And that, to me, is always an interesting instability. So I, being a smart so-and-so, came up and said, can you invest everything in there? Because that's a heck of a good return. He didn't like that.
Well, the reason it is like that for Cowlitz County is because we have a pretty high percentage of folks who qualify for poverty assistance, welfare assistance, because it's all pegged to that income level.
Yeah.
And that generates more revenue from the state it's not exactly the kind of revenue we want to brag about, but
But that is weird because when you take a look at our assets, we've had a very strong manufacturing base for a long time and the ports and all that, and yet I mean, we should be in the upper echelon, not the lower echelon.
I wonder about that sometimes too, but I don't have the data from when I would consider the industrial row was all active, you know, with your Reynolds cable, fiber, everybody's going. And that was all, and my understanding was pretty good wages. And I would have thought we would have been a fairly high county, but I don't know the data to prove that.
so as Craig Annenberg is quick to always point out, the number one American city in paper production is Longview, Washington. Our 3 mills produce more paper than they did back in the heydays.
Oh,
But with technology, they're only hiring about half as many workers.
well, we saw
And
that.
there's a huge shift in that.
We saw that in the tour of the new Westrock
Mhm.
plant, how
Yeah.
it's all so much automation anymore. Basically, the workers are monitoring the automation.
But in just what you said, there's a key in there, because in the private world, if I have 100 employees in my group and I manage to get the same output with only 50 employees, I will have actually increased the overhead, but I will have greatly increased the productivity. And increasing productivity makes the difference between why we in the United States do fairly well compared to India, where they have very low per capita productivity. So we have to be careful.
So the thing that you have to remember then is each one of those workers that no longer is working represents a family whose income has dramatically changed. And we've seen that result. When I was growing up, Longview rated at the very bottom of unemployment rate. I mean, we had full employment, best in the state, because of all the mill workers involved. We don't have that many, we don't have as many mill workers. And guess what? The poverty rate has gone up. And that's, again, that kind of explains why so much government money is coming in.
But that's probably, as mean as it sounds, it's part of the problem. When people in Oklahoma during the Dust Bowl couldn't make a living there, they left. And we have the attitude that I want to live here, and therefore, if I can't afford it because there are no jobs for it, someone else has to pay for it. The answer is no, you go where the jobs are.
Yeah.
Or you learn new skills.
Which are where?
Yeah.
Where do you go for the new jobs?
I beg your pardon?
Where do you go for the new jobs?
Well,
Particularly if you don't have the education level.
that's where we really sell people short, that we do not treat education as you've got to worry about future changes. I'm concerned about the real negative swing against a college degree. And I understand the complaints. There are all kinds of issues there. But eventually, if you get to a trade school and you get to be a master welder, those jobs are going to go away. And a truck driver pays handsomely now, but a lot of those jobs are going to go away. So if you're 25 years old now, in 20 years, you'll probably be unemployed.
But, you know, I think as sectors go away, then other sectors open up. There's
You got to
always-
find that, but it's more technical.
You got to be more fluid. I don't think you're gonna,
Yeah.
the days of, it's not a ton of employees that work 30 years at the same place anymore. You know, so you got to be more fluid.
is.
And I never.
There certainly is that, but I think there is something. I remember being so enthusiastic about world trade, free trade being the answer. And the promise was made that the government will make sure that the workers that were displaced would get the education to get other jobs. And I think if you read biographies like Hillbilly Elegy by Senator Vance, you realize that that promise didn't come through. And we do have these pockets of poverty in
Well,
the
that's
former
typical political
Rust Belt.
promise.
Huh?
That's typical of a political promise. A chicken in every pot.
Well, but you don't see, we haven't seen a lot of mass migration to other places to utilize the blue collar skills. Those jobs haven't transferred. And a lot of different reasons why, but so you don't, you mentioned the Great Migration during the Great Depression. That kind of proves my point. That was 75 years ago. We're not seeing those kinds of migrations now.
Well, the issue is, as we have progressed as a society, well, not as a society, I'm not sure we've progressed that much, but as we've progressed technologically, many manual jobs have gone away. And it's going to get worse with time, where if your job depends on operating something, and you will be replaced by a machine. But we don't help people understand that. So we actually denigrate science, technology, and math. Oh, you don't want to do math. Math is too complex. I'm not for math. I'd rather take music. Well, that's okay, but there's a price there.
Well, we're all just going to be AI holograms up here at one point in time. I don't know if this will be working.
As long as my paycheck still comes, right?
You only got 98 and a half days. No, you're about now to 98 days now.
Well, who's counting?
Yeah.
Have we provided adequate entertainment?
You're the lucky group that gets to listen to us.
Well, we have had some programs, some assistance programs from a handful of agencies who recognize that we do kind of create a trap for people in poverty to get out of poverty. Because if they get those jobs and they earn 1 penny over the limit, they lose the supports, which makes their lives less viable if they're going to work. That is so backwards. So we need to continue to look for those programs that provide that gradual adjustment as their incomes go up. They don't need the supports as much, but dropping them 100% is counterproductive. Have to always remember people are motivated when there are incentives, not punishments.
Yeah.
I don't know. You didn't meet my mom, I guess.
I didn't say fear.
As long as we're opining, I think we've made it more difficult for the entrepreneurial spirit to take effect. Like we talked the other day about international building codes. Well, you can't go in a garage and find a better way to do it and sell it unless you run through all this other stuff. Or you can't start up a business without coming and we've got to give you a license and we're going to do fees and that. So we've kind of taken some of that. We make it more difficult for people to take care of themselves too.
Tying it back to recording fees, if I get a license as a hairdresser, does that need to be recorded? No?
Licenses.
I think they got to have a license. I had to have a license as a,
No, they have
for me
to,
to do more.
they have to have a license, but it doesn't get recorded.
It's
Oh,
exempt.
okay.
It
It's one
doesn't-
of those exempt documents.
No, it doesn't even get recorded.
I'm not sure if Carolyn's telling her, but I don't think licenses have anything to do with the recording.
And
No,
if,
they have to apply for a business license within a different jurisdiction and depending on what the craft is. So what you're talking about would be a state license. So
does that go
specifically
through
issued-
recording?
no, that's specifically issued through DOL, believe it or not.
What happens if there's, I go to court and a decision is rendered on some suit I was involved with? Does that get recorded, or how does the public find out about that? Is that a whole different area?
Yeah, so clerk's recording is very different than auditor's office recording. So those judicial decisions are official records of the clerk's office. Now, certain things, I'll use a land dispute as an example. If you're tied up in a land dispute and those records of the dispute will be held with the clerk's office. However, in the end, maybe an easement agreement came out of that. Now that's a land record that then comes to the auditor's office to be recorded. All kinds of different variances that you could talk about.
And maybe we should remind you, you still haven't fixed the clock.
Yeah.
I would take it off, but I don't want to make you mad. You don't want to see my background. I don't want to make anybody jealous.
I've said before, but when I was doing mortgage, I had a mortgage number and I had a FBI check on a yearly basis, and there's a site, and I don't remember the website anymore. You could go and look up any mortgage officer across the United States and see what they've done. That's just to make you a mortgage.
The technique in graduate school is you're up before a board, your board. There are 5 people who presumably are experts in their field, and your job is to get them arguing amongst themselves so that 3 or 4 hours go by and they say, gee, this must be a good guy. And then,
Off you go. Yeah.
yes, I've tried it.
Okay. We
Any
appreciate your
comments from the
time.
public?
If there's comments from the public? No? Okay. Thanks for your time. And once again, I always appreciate these. I think they're very, very helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, without any, we adjourn.